Taking a look at Fred Mifflin's press release, the former Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, press release from 1997, when he announced new entrants into this fishery, new inshore entrants, he's quite clear in terms of adjacency. He says adjacency will be respected, which means that those who live near the resource will have priority in fishing it. So it's quite clear. There's no mention, as your testimony has already outlined, there's no mention then of LIFO. So I have two questions. First is, to what degree the inshore fishery of Newfoundland and Labrador relies on other fisheries outside of shrimp. We know that cod, for example, has taken a hit in the last few years. The price of cod that a fisherman earns, I believe, is only around 50 cents a pound, and crab has also taken a hit. So what other species, what other fisheries do our inshore fishermen, our traditional inshore fishermen, have to rely on? That's the first question. And the second question, I want to get my questions out before you go because we have limited time. My second question is with your these 4 points that you brought up, Mr. Hutchings, in terms of eliminating LIFO, adjacency, scientific assessment, and a plan to study the impact of climatic change, specifically in regards to number 3, which is the scientific assessment of northern shrimp. My question is, in terms of the management, in terms of the science right now, on northern shrimp. We had a witness here from the Seafood Processors Association. He mentioned that we do assessments. DFO only has 2 scientists that are focusing in on northern cod. But can you elaborate on why a scientific assessment is critical at this point?
Okay, Mr. Cleary, your first question is, I guess, is related to the capacity, or what else is there for the inshore fisher in regards to their moving on from where we're to today. There's other species, certainly whelk, sea cucumber, mackerel, herring. There's other species that the inshore fisher, turbot, that makes up that enterprise. But someone that holds the shrimp allocation and has access to the inshore is extremely important. And that varies from region of the province, as you probably know. The challenge here with this actual issue we're facing is that some of the enterprises that left only have shrimp left, and it's going to be devastating for them in regards to a reduction this year and any future reduction under LIFO. You're talking about taking that enterprise out because they've invested. After 2007 was indicated in regards to the permanent stakeholders, they have nothing. In regards to those other enterprises, shrimp is part of that enterprise, and they have other various species. But when we're growing our fishing industry, we need enterprises with multi-species, and we can't afford, if we lose them through science, well, in this particular case, it needs to be equally distributed so everybody shares some of the pain. In regards to your recommendation number 3, I mean, as a province, we've always had concerns over the past number of years in terms of what we've seen is a pullback from DFO in regards to science and research, to the point where we as a province have invested heavily in science and research in Newfoundland and Labrador, certainly for the Centre for Eco-Research at Marine Institute, and looking at that ecosystem research and science, not looking at specific species, but the interaction of species and what that means. And you make decisions based on the interaction of those species. Extremely important. So I think when we say this is what we're talking about. This is where we need to get to. We need to start that. It should have been done yesterday, collectively by DFO. But we need to start at least now. We're doing our part. We've entered into areas that's under federal jurisdiction in regards to science because we know it's a priority. But we just think it's imperative if we go forward to manage a fishery and have proper fishery management science and information to make those decisions. Colleagues,
yeah, first of all, yeah, go back to your first question there, Mr. Cleary, is as you know that in our province there are very little opportunities within other species. We're seeing, challenges and pressures put on the biomass, certainly with crab, as you mentioned. So there's not a whole lot of other options for people when you look at the 10 plants that we spoke about here today that primarily rely upon shrimp to make them viable. So there's not as if they could actually have another option that they could easily go to. To your second question about the science and the importance of science, is what we know is that this is an interconnected ecological fishery that we're talking about here. And so it's historically we've seen if cod stocks are lowering, well, you see an increase in shrimp. Right now, we're just seeing this transition taking place right now, or this is what people are telling us. So it's important, extremely important, that we get the benchmarks in place so that we can properly assess and evaluate and get an evaluation on how the stocks actually look. And not just in the shrimp stocks, of course, but in all other species. It's important that we get those benchmarks in place, because without that science, it's really just a guess.
Just add 2 points. I won't repeat what's been said, but in the presentation we heard from Fogo, from the Fogo Co-op, they will be devastated, absolutely devastated by the loss of the shrimp quota. It was quite telling to see their presentation, to listen to their presentation, quite frightening. I just put that much out. With regard to the scientific assessment, from my perspective, and I think all of ours, what we're talking about is getting real facts on the table. Really looking at what really is happening. We have decisions that are being made, it appears to us, based not on facts and based not on the principles that are also laid out, that were laid out by Mifflin. And we think that has to end. And I hope that we'll see a reason for that with us being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Cleary. Mr. Sopak.